Hi, John. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for agreeing to be on the podcast. It's a pleasure to have you on.
The pleasure is mine. Really looking forward to the discussion.
I thought I've seen you present on stage so many times. It's about time I get you for a one-on-one discussion.
I mean, I'm not sure why they let me on stage anymore, but yes, happy to share some thoughts and perspectives. But always love being out in front of people and chatting with folks. And yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Well, it'd be good to, for those who may not know about you, a bit of an introduction to yourself.
Yeah, happy to. So, John Ferguson, I run what we call our global solution architecture team. So, our team works with our customers and our prospects to kind of figure out, okay, how does the platform fit in our world? What are the right things to bring to the platform? And so, many folks, listening to this probably know folks on my team. But here at OutSystems, I kind of play that role of running the team and then being executive sponsor for some of our customers to help kind of guide them in that executive approach. But yeah, it's a privilege. Been with OutSystems now almost about 5 years, coming up on my anniversary. But it's a role that I really enjoy doing, speaking with customers, spending time with them, and meeting with folks like yourself. So really appreciate it.
Yeah. And, we'll get stuck into OutSystems, but it'd be good to just understand, a bit of a snippet of life before OutSystems and your background. And also kind of, when did you first even hear of OutSystems and what was your first impressions?
Yeah. So on a dark and gloomy day back in So, I started my career actually in the investment management space as an engineer and a developer. And so, went to school and university for computer science and, really got a good understanding of how to build software, but also how not to build software. So we learned a lot back then of what worked and what didn't. And so what I was able to do is I kind of found out about this role of a solution architect or a pre-sales engineer. And they said, hey, why don't you come, do this? We're at this company called VMware. You may have heard of them before,
Yeah.
but we're this like small development area of it. And so I made the jump over actually to VMware, very quickly got spun out into a company called Pivotal, which was a big part of Cloud Foundry and sort of the early container space, a lot of the Spring network, Spring framework and the Java space. So I was always a big Java developer.
Okay.
Back in the day. And, through that, had a really great journey with them. And then eventually came over to OutSystems to, run our Americas solution architecture team. But for me, it's always been about the software and the teams building the software and, getting back to my roots of like, hey, what are we building and what do we care about? How do we build it the right way has always been a bit of a passion for me. And I've just been fortunate enough to be with great companies along the way that have allowed me to explore that passion.
And, being a Java guy, how was it kind of then, moving over to low code? Were you skeptical or were you more kind of of the opinion of like, this is the future and the direction things are going to move into?
Yeah. No, my first opinion was this thing's a toy. I can't do anything real with this, and I think this is something I always think a lot about having that aha moment where I was like,
Mm.
oh, wait, actually, this like solves a big problem that I have. So at the time, a back end developer, happy to talk cloud native microservices all day long. Like that's my thing. But I couldn't build a UI that anybody ever wanted to use. If someone ever looked at the JavaScript that I've put together in the past, like that is true spaghetti code. It is a mess. And so I got exposed to OutSystems and I was like, yeah, low code, kind of whatever. I knew Mendix at the time. That was actually a partner of ours. And so I was already had some exposure to the space. But OutSystems really set a hook for me because I could build that UI and user experience that it was not possible with my skill set and my experience. And I could do it in a way that like I could deploy those apps to production and I could see how they were getting there. And that sort of made me go, wait, this is way more powerful than I thought, and kind of broke down that developer resistance that was built up in me. Because I absolutely was the person who said, low code is terrible, it's worthless. But I'm here because I did have that aha moment. And it made me realize, oh, actually, this is a really powerful tool and platform that allows me to get done what I really care about, which is building apps that people use. And that kind of brought me into the low code. And I've been here now for 5 years and it's been like really interesting. But that was the moment that I went, wait, there's something more here.
Yeah, that's amazing. And, you mentioned in your role, you work with some, key customers as well. And obviously you probably know about most of the key customers of OutSystems globally or been involved. How do you position OutSystems to be just more than a dev tool and, more of a kind of strategic driver for transformation?
Sure. I mean, honestly, a lot of people don't get started there. And usually the most powerful moment is when someone says, wait, I can build more than just, our cafeteria app
Yeah,
or a little form filling app. But a lot of people do start there. And I think when we're talking with, executives, it's a conversation that connects them to the business, right? Businesses care about only a couple of things. They care about their P&L, they care about their risk, and they care about their customers. And so if they're improving their P&L, they're keeping their customers, they're reducing their risk, and we can connect to one or more of those things, which OutSystems does, then we're able to have a conversation that's more about enterprise impact. Otherwise, if we're only talking about small departmental things,
yeah.
well, a great place to start, it doesn't always feel like it has that enterprise type impact. And that's the big jump that we try to help people understand is OutSystems can affect your P&L. It can affect your customer retention. It can reduce your risk. And that's the moment where people go, oh, this is actually something more interesting than just a tool in the toolbox.
And you touched on the whole, this is for toy apps comment that a lot of people say, right? And I think low code still has that kind of, and it could be because there's so many tools out there now today that, some are for smaller things, versus out systems, what you can do with the platform, how are you kind of, how can you change that mindset? Obviously you and your team are in the field with a lot of the sales guys all the time. You'd be kind of hearing things. How do you try and change that mindset?
Yeah, put your hands on a keyboard. Honestly, that it's one of those things where the proof is truly in the pudding. When people, when we run into that, and we run into it often, right? We even coined that term developer resistance
Yeah,
within OutSystems. And it's real because it's usually comes from a place of like, hey, I've probably used some kind of tool, low codish in the
yeah,
past, and it wasn't powerful enough. And so getting folks to put their hands on the keyboard, get a personal edition, play with it, try to build something real. That is when we kind of break that resistance down. It's really hard to just break it down on a whiteboard or in a
yeah,
conversation. It has to be done practically. And that's usually when we like really get people to see the light around it is, oh, I can do way more with this than I thought I could because I actually did it. So that's always a big thing is like get your hands on a keyboard, play with it, try to build something difficult. And we see that today. People have a lot of resistance to what's AI going to do to my
yeah,
world. Well, put your hands on the keyboard and see the power of these things coming together. And that hits reality. And I think that's always a powerful moment.
yeah. And talking about developer resistance, do you find because obviously the business leaders, they're obviously more open to exploring, right? And seeing what's
Mhm.
going to help kind of move the needle, along and, be successful. Do you find it is that's why the term's there? Because developers are a bit like, how they are with their stack is like your sports team. You're just not going to
Yeah.
change, right? So do you
Right.
feel when you're speaking to organizations, most of the time the skeptics come from the development team?
I think so. And part of that is because the business generally doesn't really care about the implementation. They
Yeah,
do, the cost of it, do we have the talent, all those other things. And those are all risks to success. But if the business feels like, okay, I can get the thing done a little faster, maybe cheaper, a little better, well, then I should look at that way of doing it. And so that's why the resistance typically comes up in a developer mindset because those are the people who have to actually use it. And that I think is
yeah,
why a lot of, when people are thinking through it, they're like, well, wait, this is going to change my job. And they look at it through that lens. A business person's job doesn't change if they choose
yeah,
OutSystems. I mean, hopefully for a positive,
yeah,
right? They get
yeah,
something done and they get promoted and all good things. But for a developer, yeah, this can be really a big change because it's changing the way they build. They're not writing strings and strings of code. They're putting things together in a visual manner. They're prompting things like Mentor. There's
yeah,
a whole new way of thinking, and that's change. And change can be hard for humans. We're not always the best at it
yeah.
as a species.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And what signals do you look for in in an enterprise, to show when they're ready to scale?
Sure. I mean, when a company is ready to kind of move to that next level, they've probably built a couple of apps. Maybe one of them is like gotten some attention.
Mm.
And that's actually one big signal is when we see another line of business or another group kind of sniffing around and they're starting to ask questions, that's a really good sign that we need to help set them up for that journey. The other big thing is when someone puts their first mission critical app in production, that is like, okay, now it's real. because if this thing goes down or something happens, like it's impactful to the business. So that is the most critical moment in someone's journey, is when they put a real mission critical system in place on OutSystems, because of two big things. One, risk. Hey, you're putting a lot of risk on OutSystem. You're betting, you're making a bet here. So that's important. But two, it's that moment where someone goes, wait, I can use this for more than just a couple of things. And people see the value that gets delivered by it. And all of a sudden that creates more gravity. We talk a lot about sort of the gravity of people's journey, like where they are in the journey. Is that pulling in other people in the organizations? And if it is, they're starting to scale. We need to help them set up for that scale. But that mission critical moment, yeah, it is probably the single signal that is the most important one to say, like, we're ready to take the next.
Yeah. And talking about enterprise grade, what does enterprise grade architecture look like in OutSystems?
I love being asked about this term, enterprise grade.
Okay.
I have like a really strong thought on this. Because we always think about it as, is it resilient or scalable or secure? And those things are super important. But enterprises are messy. They're complex. They've made investments in tooling and structures and things. And I think something is truly enterprise grade when it fits. It's like putting on a really nice shirt, right? If it fits, it feels right.
Yeah.
And enterprise grade is very much like that. If I can fit it into the investments I've made in my observability and security stack, if I can fit it into the way our teams work and our SDLC and maybe our CI/CD tooling. And that's always something that, is really important to us at OutSystems, is we have to be open for extensibility, open for connectivity. And to me, enterprise grade is about, do you fit in the enterprise architecture? Can you fit in the tooling that exists? Now, sometimes we'll cause people to rethink some of those decisions. Great, that's healthy. But truly enterprise grade means that while we have all the illities that come with the definition of enterprise grade, we're fitting in that ecosystem. And that really means that something is enterprise grade, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you also talked about, business critical, right? So, how do you, what's the key from, moving from just a POC to a business critical system?
Yeah. The number one key truly is nothing to do with technology. It's sponsorship. It's buy-in. It's getting that person to take a little bit of a step forward in uncertainty to be able to say, no, you know what? This thing that maybe we were going to build in traditional code or on some other platform, we'll build on OutSystems. That is the most. But I do think, there's other steps that people take, where they can show, hey, this proof of concept really does have value. It's also great when we can bring in more than just one person. The diversification of power in organizations is strong.
Yeah.
And so it's very rare that one person has all the power to make all the decisions. And so there's a people aspect of it, as well as a buy-in and sponsorship aspect. Those don't have much to do with the tech, but our tech makes that possible.
Yeah. It's funny because a lot of people I've spoken to a lot this year have spoken about, that the importance of that champion within the customer, right? And that person, how that can help it be successful, going forward. And then the more you have, the better.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I do think what we've seen over the last, let's say 10 years, is that power has gotten distributed, the ability to make decisions. It's really hard to have one person have all that power. And so, we work as OutSystems to make sure we're empowering the people who have taken that step forward to be our champions. But also it's, how do we help them create champions in other people and create that groundswell so that someone then says, this is a great idea to do more with this platform, to do more of the outcomes that we've gotten and actually kind of empower that champion. It's always an awesome moment when we hear from one of our champions that, hey, I just got promoted. Like, thank you. You were a big part of that success. Those moments are awesome for us. And that's a big thing as we kind of go through it.
And, you've been there for 5 years. So, I was there when kind of you did the Project Morpheus thing in Denver. And obviously it's moved along the way now. Mentor was released last year. How's, as much as you can share, how have things kind of evolved since, we're coming up to 1 year of Mentor and announcement of Mentor. How's things evolved in the last 12 months?
Sure. Mentor was interesting because at the time we were much more focused on pure code generators and sort of early, hey, how are we going to leverage? I mean, we weren't even talking about agentic. It wasn't really a term people used. It was just starting. And so, in many ways, this was our first step into it. It was our step into the
Yeah.
uncertainty of the AI world. Because we had done a lot of AI work up into that
Yeah.
point, natural language processing in
Mhm.
Studio and some other interesting stuff. But this was our first, like, hey, look, we're bringing the pieces together, not just to write code, but to actually build a full app. And that was big. Now, what we've realized is that it's not just about the app. We have to create governance around it. It has to run in the platform in an enterprise grade way. It's got to
Yeah.
integrate. It's got to be resilient. And that's where a lot of our focus has been, is creating Mentor as sort of the entry point for someone who's a developer. Our view of the world is that, one, the term developer is going to shift and change. It
Mhm.
already is. But this idea of a multimodal world where I'm more conversational in how I build apps,
Mm.
I'm more low code, I might still use traditional code. I need all of these ways to build the app that really comes out the other side and keep it updated. And so our path with Mentor, and just to tease the ONE Conference, we'll share a
Yeah.
lot more there, is to create an experience for whatever this new definition of developer is that feels like it's making them more productive every time they use it. And that, we'll tease and we'll show some stuff at ONE, but there's a long vision that we have that brings together Mentor and the rest of the platform that creates an experience that developers feel like, well, I'm better than I was
Yeah.
yesterday. And that's going to be really cool.
That is really cool. Yeah. And, talking about releases, obviously not long ago, Agent Workbench was also released. It's obviously that all the conversations have to be around AI at the moment, right?
Right.
If you're not, then no one wants to listen to you speak, right? So kind of, how do you see that changing, enterprise, AI adoption?
Sure. It's so interesting, right? MIT put out an article a couple of weeks ago that was like 95% of AI projects fail or something.
Yeah.
And everybody kind of focused on like, whoa, that's such a big
Yeah.
number. But what they didn't actually talk about too much was, think about the 5% that did succeed, and they are having amazing, insane success. Like the
Mm.
outcomes that people are having are just magnitudes higher than we've ever been, thought were possible. And when you look at the delta between those two camps, the ones who are succeeding and the ones who are not succeeding, maybe or
Yeah.
haven't succeeded yet, there's sort of like three big things that sort of show up. One is a tolerance for risk, because it's like, cool, I built my first little proof of concept, but now I want to use our employee data or our customers' data. And it's like, legal, security, hold
Yeah.
on, time out. Um, there's a talent gap, right? And I think when we look at the 5% that succeeded, they have a lot of money. This is a little bit of a
Yeah.
rich person's game right now.
Yeah.
And they can acquire, really great talent. And then I think there's a big part of it that's cost. Right now,
Mm.
the amount of money that goes into running these LLMs, to like building these agentic things, just the hardware alone can be super expensive. And you see these things kind of show up as like the 5%ers, the successful ones, have those things well understood, and the others don't. And so our opportunity as OutSystems is to come in and help bring more of the 95% forward. De-risk, the access by increasing governance and making it better. And Agent Workbench will help us do that. Lower the bar on the need to have higher levels of talent, those like one or two people who know it all. Like democratize the use of agentic systems. Like that is going to be a thing over the next couple of years that is really, really important. And then the other piece of it too is, how do we help people control cost? And that'll be something that's more longer term, but governing what models people can use and how they use them will allow enterprises to figure out, wait, don't just give the super duper crazy model to everybody.
Yeah.
Give them, little smaller models and trial models, and then we evolve and we grow. And that's the kind of thing that people will feel with Agent Workbenches. They've got more control from an enterprise perspective, but actually a feeling of more autonomy from a developer and creator perspective. And that is the balance beam we're trying to walk across.
Yeah. It's exciting to kind of see. Obviously, it feels like at the moment it's a bit of a race, right? A bit of a scramble where everyone's kind of trying to, jump on AI, but they need to jump on it the right way. And,
Yeah.
there's, who's going to do it right kind of way. So that's quite interesting to hear, And, from a technical perspective, what's the biggest blockers to scaling with low code, and how do you overcome them?
Yeah. A lot of it has to do with the way people work today and the tooling that they use. is getting them to kind of understand how those things all fit together. Like I said before, enterprise grade to me is more about the integration of the ecosystem. And so a lot of times people are saying, well, wait, we can't integrate with this other system, or we can't do this other thing. And getting people to understand that you can, and breaking down those technical blockers is actually more of a conversation than it is a, hey, there's this like technical thing you have to do differently. And so as we see people kind of evolve, they're like, wait, I can integrate with my existing CI/CD, and that unlocks a whole other set of workloads that they couldn't bring to the platform before. The other big thing we see a lot of people spend a lot of time on is security. And the security posture of a lot of companies is evolving and changing. I mean, AI is disrupting that thing too. And so, what we see is a lot of people saying, okay, well, how does OutSystems do this? Or how does OutSystems do that? And sometimes because we make choices in the platform to be more secure, like in ODC, a lot of people are like, wait, I want access to the database. I'm like, well, no, actually you shouldn't do that, but we should give you ways to pull your data out and make it accessible in ways. Just that mindset shift is like a blocker for people, and getting them to think a little bit differently about how we do that, so that their existing security postures can kind of evolve to where we believe and where we see the industry going in terms of like cloud native security practices.
And, talking about mindset shift, most people have done it the traditional way, right? That's kind of what they're used to. That's how they're kind of running projects. You bring in low code, you can't necessarily just run it how you've continued to run it. How do you what advice are you giving to kind of get that shift and get them successful from day one?
Yeah. I mean, the advice I always give to customers that I work with is come with an open mind. We don't have all the answers, because if we had every single answer, possibly we would be an AI and we would be a machine. But coming with an open mind to think through the problems together, 9 times out of 10, we're going to get where we need to go. And oftentimes it's that like growth versus static mindset that shows up. You're like, well, we've done it this way for 20 years. It's like, sure, but the rate of change is accelerating, and that 20 might not really work anymore. And so that's where I think, again, it's not a technical thing. It's helping people embrace a growth mindset. So they're like, well, if you can satisfy the needs I have, the outcomes I care about, maybe you're doing it in a different way, but am I more secure if I run on ODC? Yeah, of course, because we've done a lot to invest in the security posture of it. But that might change the way you think about security or the way you think about your processes. So a lot of that time is spent just like getting people sitting down. The days of doing everything over Zoom can sometimes be difficult. Sometimes you just need to be in a room and whiteboard it and talk through it. But that's the biggest thing.
And I'm interested to know, with the introduction of AI, have you, from speaking to the field team, do you feel like things have decision makers have slowed down in making decisions because they're trying to work out what they want to do, or do you feel, especially because you guys have been thinking about AI well before it's kind of hotted up and, you're doing these releases, that it's gaining even more traction?
It's so interesting. It's both and sometimes neither.
Okay.
Is that like the classic "it depends" answer? No, well, it depends. No, what's fascinating right now is some people are like, now's the time to break glass, and they run and they're going to go, all the way. And we're like, okay, here we go. And they challenge us. I mean, they push us hard to be like, hey, you guys need to keep up, and I want to go here. Fantastic. We love that. I will say the majority of folks, though, are saying, okay, I need to experiment and see what I might be able to do, but then I need to slow down. And we think there's an opportunity for us as OutSystems to kind of bridge that gap between when people are like, this was exciting, to I get this in production and I operationalize and I truly run it. And that's where something like the OutSystems platform can fit to kind of guide them over that chasm. Because let's be clear, we're coming up to the trough of disillusionment with AI. Like everyone's standing at the top of the hype curve looking down going, well, this is going to be ugly.
Yeah.
But, companies who can kind of embrace the power of it and figure out how to kind of navigate through this, they're going to move from that 95 to that 5%. And like I said, the outcomes that people are seeing when they're successful with this are insane. It's huge growth rates, it's huge outcomes. It's these like big things that people are going to love to talk about at conferences for years to come. And so us being able to kind of guide them through that journey, bridge it with some technology, but also bridge it with thought leadership, because we have been working in this space for a while. We do our own building of things with AI
Yeah.
and all of that. So we've learned things that we think we can share. That will bring a lot of customers forward. And I think kind of help bridge that gap over this trough that we're all kind of staring down
Yeah.
into right
Yeah.
now.
And I know your role's global, but being based in the US, and obviously, I've moved here not long ago, and I'm interested to know from someone who's been kind of, in it now for 5 years. Do you feel in the US OutSystems is starting to be better known, or it's still kind of OutSystems? What's OutSystems? Never heard of OutSystems.
Yeah, we still have work to do.
Yeah.
But I do think, 10 years ago, did I ever hear about systems?
Yeah.
Not really. And I was
Yeah.
kind of in the space. Like I said,
Yeah.
I've worked with Mendix as a
Yeah.
partner. I've worked with Microsoft as a partner. So it was like I knew low code.
Mm.
But nowadays, I think what people are sort of waking up to is, all right, building with traditional code, I've got to either go all the way into every single AI tech
Yeah.
startup kind of thingy. I got to lean in super hard, or I need to find an alternate path. And people are realizing that OutSystems and the low code approach is an alternate path. I think a lot of folks are starting to feel like, wow, I've put all my eggs in this AI basket.
Yeah.
By the way, it's a powerful basket. The
Yeah.
tooling that's out there and where it's going to go in the next couple of years. I mean, I'm excited. This is
Yeah.
cool. But I think a lot of folks are now coming to us because they're like, all right, what's the alternative? And they see Gartner and Forrester
Mm.
and the analysts talk about, OutSystems and where we are. And they're like, maybe I'll explore that more. And the Americas, particularly the US and similar countries like UK and
Yeah.
Australia, are very developer empowered and developer centric.
Yeah.
And so making sure that we have offerings and communities and things that bring them, that gravity of community for us in the
Yeah.
Americas is starting to get there. And we'll see, I think, a tipping point over the next couple of years. If we're able to successfully do what we plan to do and execute on it, people will start to recognize OutSystems and will become a little more of a household name.
Yeah.
It's up to us to execute, though.
You spoke about, the developer role changing, and, how do you see the role of a solution architect changing now with, AI in the mix?
Yeah. I mean, we have to turn to be more consultative than ever. So much of our work was about the technical architecture. Okay, what fits? What's the right way to construct this? Blah, blah, blah. People need guidance. And like I said before, when people are looking at that trough, it's not just the product that's going to carry them, it's going to be our thought leadership. And so when I look at the role of my team, and they're sick of me talking about this because I talk about it all the time, we truly have to be consultative. We need to be guides. We're the Sherpas of the next gen of app
Yeah.
dev. And I feel that if we do that well, our customers are going to do that move from the 95 to the 5. But yeah, our role is definitely continue to evolve from, hey, what do you want to build, to what's the right way to build it in the way this is impactful for
Yeah.
you. And that's an evolution that we have and continue to go through on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I always enjoy speaking to the architects when I interview them, because just the stories and the conversations that they share, and even just, all of them have these aha moments that they have with customers, right? And they're just so like great to hear that they can go in a room and kind of convince people who may not be keen to be there. And
Right.
then by the end of it, kind of be like, aha, this is actually pretty, we can actually do quite a bit with it. And it's not just for toy apps.
Right. No, it's an amazing moment. And I, give kudos to the team. They work hard. A lot of them don't have backgrounds in AI and they're
Yeah.
working hard to get their chops, and we're investing in them to make sure we can get there. But I think, we have a great team of people who listen. And that's always
Yeah.
something I talk to them about, is like, you got 2 ears and 1 mouth. And my mom always said, you got to listen twice as hard as you talk. And I've never been good at it, but we need to listen more and hear what people are trying to do, and then bring our expertise forward. It doesn't work the other way around. We can't show up and be like, this is amazing, and not
Yeah.
listen to what they care about. And I give kudos to the team. I think they do a great job of that with our customers.
And what do you think, a well-architected enterprise would look like in 2-3 years with low-code OutSystems at the core?
Yeah. I think an organization that looks at OutSystems as a way to centralize the way they think about security, observability, and other things like that, we'll find that then the multimodal way of building apps, AI based and conversational AI, traditional low code, I guess, as we would call it, right? The visual sort of
Yeah.
drag and drop, and still having that way to go back to traditional code when we need it. An organization that looks at that as a centralized point will truly be able to scale. If, a couple of years from now, we see that, Agent Workbench is integrating with people's own little models, right? Their micro models, their smaller models that they're developing. If we see that Mentor is pulling in integrations from all sorts of custom, endpoints and APIs that they have, that's what enterprise grade is going to look like in the future, because it will sit in the center. And not only will we be bringing in data, we'll be bringing in all these other AI and agentic based systems, and they'll all feel like first class citizens in the platform. And I think once people kind of make that jump to like, wait, agents, apps, they live together, they're based on data and models, these things live in an ecosystem. That will be the moment that like the enterprise grade sort of next gen, emerges. And who knows? Like I said, agentic wasn't even a term, what, a
Yeah.
year and a half ago?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we could be talking about, Willy widgets in
Yeah. Yeah.
a year, who knows? But I do think the companies that take a thoughtful, deliberate approach, but are willing to take a step into uncertainty, those are the ones that will win over the next couple of years. And we as OutSystems have an opportunity to be the engine that powers that step.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think, exciting times. And, talking about exciting times, you'll be delivering one of the keynotes, at one in Lisbon. And, you know, obviously there's not much you can give away because that will kill the excitement. But, if we're trying to get some last minute tickets kind of booked, what can people, why should people turn up? And, the ones that are turning up, what can they look forward to, as much
Yeah.
as you can give me?
As much as I can give. No, excited to be on stage. And obviously this is going to be an interesting one conference. It'll be the first one without Paulo in the CEO
Yeah. Wow.
role. He'll still be there and
Yeah.
around, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Thankfully so, and gratefully
Yes.
so. But yeah, this will be, our new CEO, Woodson Martin's
Yeah.
opportunity to kind of showcase to the world his vision and where he wants to take the organization. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't really excited.
Nice.
What people are going to come and see at one is not just, here's a new feature and you do this. And there'll be some of that. We have some exciting stuff about how O11 and ODC are going to work together better in the future. I know that's important for a lot of
Yeah.
existing customers. Exciting stuff about Mentor, where it fits, Agent Workbench, and sort of the evolution of that. But I think what people will walk away from is what felt like a disjointed vision over the last couple of years is going to feel more cohesive, and that this is a train I should get on rather than deciding if I want to jump off it. Because let's be clear, people have, been like, wait, where is OutSystems? What's
Yeah.
their identity? Who are they? And I think what they'll walk away, at least what I've seen so far, with a feeling of they've got their act together. We had some troubling times, but we got
Yeah.
our act together. And this feels like a train that's worth jumping on. I know I feel that way. And a lot of people internally feel that way because it's always interesting
Yeah.
when you have leadership change. But I hope the community feels that way. And I think when they come to the one conference, they're going to get that view into this vision and frankly of what's coming today. Very often one conference is an opportunity to highlight the future, but we're going to talk about what's happening in the present and the future. And that should be really refreshing to people.
Yeah, that's great. And yeah, I think talking about some of the things you mentioned, like even the decision with O11, to kind of extend from people I've spoken to, great decision. It's kind of a lot of happy people around, so,
Yeah.
so definitely kind of a good decision.
No, I appreciate that. And I think, a lot of long nights and a lot of conversations about
Mm,
what's the right thing to do. Where's the investment going to go? How do we
mm,
balance things? And I think at the end of the day, the customers are the ones who fund the lights. We don't just naturally make money
yeah,
just by sitting here. It's on our customers and we have to treat them right. And we haven't always done that, but I think it's reflective, this choice of extending O11 to make
mm,
sure we're on this journey together, that we'll get to a place where we'll see these worlds, kind of blur. And that's kind of the hope, is you'll start to see O11 and ODC start to
yeah,
blur a little bit. And we all want to get to a one OutSystems. And I think
mm,
at the one conference, people are going to feel like these worlds are going to come together more cohesively.
amazing. Well, I appreciate you speaking to me. I think definitely people will be interested to hear more at the conference, and I'm quite keen to see what will be announced. And, like you said, obviously it's going to be Woodson kind of up there, so it's going to be a first for many, they're so used to seeing Paolo,
Yeah.
kind of opening things. Appreciate you agreeing to be on and sharing kind of, your journey, what, your insights, what you're seeing in the market. Obviously, all your views on, what's going to happen, and how customers can, be successful with low code and AI, and, it might be great to speak again in the future when because things will evolve, as they are so rapidly, and kind of see, you know, how the conversation's changed.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? Maybe I'll be totally wrong.
Who knows? We can talk about it.
It would be a great conversation. But no, for any listener who gets a chance to, catch up with me at One, come find me. I'll be there all conference and, happy just to chit chat about what's going on.